Hello, it's Tom, editor of the Popcorn Muncher, and welcome once again to our YouTube channel. Now today I'm going to give you the first in a new series of videos over at the Popcorn Muncher called Nerd Explainers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain in fairly simple terms the nerdiest elements of major franchises, because when nerd culture is mainstream culture as it is today, some of us will need a roadmap. This week I'm going to explain and discuss the Infinity Stones in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, ahead of perhaps the most ambitious work of cinema in history, Avengers Infinity War, which is out more or less everywhere in the world on either the 26th or 27th of April. So with just a month to go, you'd be forgiven for being a bit lost. So to get myself in character for this video, I'm going to do what I'm calling a reverse Clark Kent. What if it was the superhero that wore these? So without further ado, let's get into what on earth, or not on earth, the Infinity Stones actually are. But first, a spoiler warning for every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, obviously. But I'm also going to go into details from the trailers we've seen for Infinity War so far, so if you're avoiding those, maybe avoid this too. Now, we don't need to talk much about how the Infinity Stones were actually created, because that's all to do with celestial entities and singularities and all sorts of weird comic book stuff. But what you do need to know is there are 6 immensely powerful objects which, when brought together in a big old glove called the Infinity Gauntlet, grant incredible powers to anyone who can wield them. The person looking to wield them is Thanos, the big purple dude played by Josh Brolin. He wants to collect all of the stones in order to, according to the latest trailer, wipe out half of the universe. Which seems quite kind and not that evil as far as megalomaniacal villains go. At least he's sharing his new dystopian universe. Now, we first saw Thanos in the post-credits sting at the end of the Avengers 6 or 7 years ago, and he's been floating around in the background ever since, trying to get others to do his bidding, whether it's Loki or Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy. In one of the credit scenes of Avengers Age of Ultron, though, we saw him declare that he was going to do it himself. He put on the gauntlet and set off. 8 films later, he's finally here. That's very much the Marvel way of doing things. So let's start talking about the actual stones. The first one we saw was the Space Stone, which is that big blue block they call the Tesseract. It's got various nifty teleportation powers. First showed up as the MacGuffin in Captain America the First Avenger, and subsequently appeared in the Avengers, where Thanos sent Loki to get it, which led to the Chitauri invasion. We last saw it back in the hands of Loki, who scooped it out of the Vault of Asgard at the end of Thor Ragnarok, and given that Thanos appeared in front of the Asgardian ship in the post-credits sting of Ragnarok, it looks like, from the trailer, Loki is going to turn heel again and hand it back to Thanos. So given that he's appearing in front of the Asgardian ship, that's probably bad news for Korg, which is sad for all of us. Now, the second stone we were all introduced to was the Mind Stone. It seems Thanos had this one already because he gave it to Loki so that he could control people's minds using his scepter in the Avengers. It fell into the hands of Hydra after Loki was defeated. They're an evil organisation too. They used it to experiment on people, creating the likes of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, because they definitely had nothing to do with mutants and everything to do with Infinity Stones. Thank you very much, rights issues. Tony Stark then nicked it, and after briefly creating the megalomaniacal, world-destroying robot Ultron, it was used to turn Stark's computer Jarvis into the Vision, who is, by all accounts, a top fella. The stone is now in his head, which is bad news for him in Infinity War, if the trailers are anything to go by. Stone number 3 is the Reality Stone, which debuted in Thor the Dark World as the Ether. Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, wanted to use the Ether to bring eternal darkness to the entire universe. See, Thanos? That's how you do villainy properly. And he chose to do it in London. I think we've all wanted to bring about eternal darkness when someone uses the wrong side of the escalator. Malekith was thwarted, but Asgard, who already had the Tesseract in their hands, didn't want another stone in the same area as the first, and so decided to give it to Benicio del Toro's The Collector for safekeeping, which is bad news for him when Infinity War comes around. We then come to Guardians of the Galaxy, where we first met the Power Stone, which was contained within the orb, which all of the characters in that film wanted. The villain, Ronan the Accuser, wanted it initially to give to Thanos, but he eventually went into business for himself. The planet-destroying powers of the orb proved too much for him not to be seduced. As a result, the Guardians ended up with the orb, and they gave it to the intergalactic peacekeepers known as the Nova Corps. As you probably guessed, that's bad news for them when Infinity War rolls around. The fifth stone, and the final one we actually know anything about, is the Time Stone. This belongs with Doctor Strange, who keeps it within the Eye of Agamotto around his neck, allows him to manipulate time, as he did at the end of his solo movie to basically annoy Dormammu into submission. Perhaps that's just a power that Benedict Cumberbatch has. Anyway, he still has the eye, which is probably bad news for him too, and indeed the trailers show him being tortured by Thanos and his very ugly minions. Things get a bit iffier around the final stone. Shots of Thanos in the first Infinity War trailer seem to suggest he has the Space Stone and the Power Stone in his gauntlet, and we can probably assume that the thumb contains the Reality Stone, which is the only other one that we know to be in space. The other two ones we know about are held by Avengers. As we've discussed, bad news for them. That just leaves the Soul Stone. Much of the trailer sees fighting take place in Wakanda, as first seen in Black Panther, which has led many to believe that the meteorite that struck Wakanda and allowed them access to vibranium might contain the stone. Ryan Coogler, in an interview with IGN, appeared to pour water on that theory, but it's possible that he just meant Marvel weren't bothered about introducing the stone in his movie. Another theory is that the barren, rocky planet we see Thanos and the Avengers fighting on in the trailers may itself be the stone. In the comics, the stone literally seeks to harvest souls and transport them to a soul world, and that would certainly explain why this face-off is happening off on some random planet rather than Earth or Asgard or somewhere where we know. So in short, there are 6 Infinity Stones. 3 of them are in space, 2 are with Avengers, and 1 is unknown. Thanos will almost certainly get the first 3, leaving Earth's mightiest heroes to protect the others. I'll certainly see you in April to find out what happens and whether finally we might get a glimpse of Ant-Man. I'm choosing to assume he's actually in every shot, like the Starbucks cups in Fight Club.
The entire time I knew him, he only ever had one goal. To wipe out half the universe. If he gets all the Infinity Stones, he can do it with the snap of his fingers. Just like that.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos.
So that's it. That's my Nerd Explains primer for the Infinity Stones. Infinity War is, of course, out, as I mentioned, on either the 26th or 27th of April, depending on where you are in the world. But in the meantime, you can get all of your superhero coverage, all of reviews, news, list articles you might want to do with cinema at thepopcornmuncher.com. I will also put all of our social media stuff in the description, so please do follow us on those services. Also, be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, leave a like and a comment on this video with your thoughts on the Infinity Stones and Infinity War in general. Thank you very much for watching.